Major funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Chase Commercial Term Lending and M&T Bank, Geneva Burns, Giantomasi and Webster, Capital One Bank, the Wickoff Group, New York Community Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company. Additional funding is provided by grants from Aerial Property Advisors, AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International NYC, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, CUNY TV Foundation, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, First Nationwide Title Insurance Agency, Flushing Bank, Friedman, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, Herrick Feinstein, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman, USRealty.com, John Katsimides, Red Apple Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, People's United Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, Urban American, and these friends.
Can you believe products are made in New York City? Food is really made here. I mean, you go to restaurants, but there's production. There's businesses that really bake, make cookies, make chocolate. I mean, make breads. I mean, it's really New York City, the home. I mean, you got 9 million people. You have 54 million visitors. They come here. You know why? They want to manja. They want to eat. They want this bread. They want this cake. They want everything. So today, due to the help of my dear friend Paul Newman of Newman's Kitchen, he has assembled the finest people who are producing products in New York City. My guests today include Amy Scherber of Amy's Bread. We'll talk where her food is. Okay, Mark Halpern of Kosar's Bialys, Keith Cohn of Allwash's Bakery, and last but not least, the chocolatier. Okay, Anthony Cerrone of Li-Lac Chocolates. So, how hard is it to be in the production business, to have quality, to have this type of bread, this baguette, and these bialys to be made every day, you know, and people, New Yorkers are the worst critics also, right? How hard is it?
It's really hard. I mean, almost for the same reason certain people don't want to play for New York teams, certain athletes, because they don't want to see themselves plastered on the back page of the newspaper. Well, those are the same people that are the critics of your food every day, that go out, either buy your bread or eat at the restaurants that you sell to. So it's pretty critical. You have to constantly perfect your craft, and you have to put out an almost perfect product every day.
For my audience, this is Amy's, okay? This is Anthony's. You could tell because it's chocolate. Maybe we'll put it over there. This is Mark's, you know, famous Bialys over there. And this is Keith's, okay? So how difficult is it for you to get quality people to work in a place? You have 150 people in your organization.
Right. I have a lot of staff that stayed for a long time.
Okay, and how do you get these people? How do you find them? How do you retain people? This is a tough city.
Well, we try to find people that really love what they do. And I mean, their hands are working to make the products every day, so we really want to have people that know, and we train them, and then we count on our staff to treat them very well.
Are your products hand-produced or
yes,
machine?
They're all made by hand, which is high labor cost. I mean, it's one of the fanciest things you can buy. Handmade in New York City, you can't buy anything like that.
So that baguette is that baguette
the olive.
over there. And yours?
We are almost entirely handmade. We do have some older machinery.
This is handmade?
That is absolutely handmade, hand chunked. It is not hand mixed though.
Right, you need
So we
you
won't
need to
go
mix
back that far in terms of the artisan craft. We do have some pretty big electric mixers.
And you for the chocolate?
Li-Lac is an old company. It's a 90-year-old
91-year-old.
company. 91, thank
celebration.
you. And most of the chocolates that we make,
And I heard I missed the thing that on the celebration of 90 where you were selling the product for $3.47.
1923 pricing.
Right.
Yeah. We make most of our recipes are our founder's original recipes from the 1920s, and we still make his original recipes by hand, a lot with the same tools and techniques that he used in the 1920s, and we just carry those traditions on decade after decade, and we still make that today.
And Bialy Plutzelman?
Same. Same. Yeah, everything's made by hand. We have a 75-year-old
that's
oven.
why that bagel has a different look as that one over there.
Correct. Yeah, from A to Z.
It's like the 2.5-pound lobster. Okay, why isn't that 2.5 pounds? Okay, it's 2 pounds. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Some of our smoked fish we get same thing. That comes in packaging, but they can't get the weight right. Everything's made by hand, and I think that makes a difference. A lot of love should go into food, and food tastes better that way, right?
Now, how do you distribute? Okay, you have, each one of you is in the retail business, but you're also, with the exception of you, really in the wholesale business. How hard is it to be selling products? I mean, you're manufacturing, and then you have to get it to the restaurants and to other retailers over there. Now,
Right.
who are you selling to besides?
We have a lot of restaurants that we work with, and we have a great roster of different chefs we work with. Anywhere from Bill Telepan at his restaurant, La Grenouille, I mean, some of the high-end restaurants, and then a lot of cafes, places that use our bread for sandwiches. I mean, it runs the gamut. Our bread's at Zabar's. It's all around the city.
Okay, are you in, I mean, not a Gristedes type of thing or a food
Most grocery
emporium?
stores don't have that much of our kind of bread. They don't tend to have a bread display. Our bread is usually sold where there's somebody to help them.
Right.
Although our bread is in Morton Williams, which is a great place to get good bread. So.
And you?
We are in some of the best restaurants in the city. We are also in some of the best retail shops in the city, and we have our own retail store. But back to your question, first the baker, and then once everything's baked, I'm in the trucking business.
So you're in the trucking business.
I'm in the
So
trucking
you
business.
truck the product yourself? I mean, or
We
Within
do.
within
Some drivers.
within New York City, and I have distributors that go Montauk, Jersey Shore, Upper Westchester, probably as far as Hartford, Connecticut. But nonetheless, for my city deliveries, I am in the trucking business and everything that comes with that.
and are you too?
Yes, we have about 7 or 8 drivers going out on different routes every morning, and then mid-morning, and then PM, so circulating the city.
Now, we were talking prior to the show that there was not a Hurricane Sandy for you, okay? There was no cold weather for you, you know, -0 or snow, because that's your business.
We
I
have to
mean,
make it every day of the week, every day of the year, around the clock.
There's little tolerance for it as well.
How is your retail business today? I mean, you got 9 million people in New York City, you have 54 million visitors, and they come here because they want to dine and they want to eat and they want to enjoy it.
And they come out to stores, but if it's cold or terrible weather, they don't want to walk more than a couple blocks, so they will get lazy. This winter was really difficult with the bad weather, and when it gets nice out, they're all out lining up to taste good food, but on a bad day, you know, you've got all your bread you made, hoping they'll show up, and they're not there.
Now, how do you promote your product? Do you have the same problems or the benefits of Yelp and so on?
Yes, I think Yelp is a very good tool, except if I get a negative review. Okay, and then it kind of sets me off. I don't necessarily, all the bad reviews, which is a handful, you know, you learn from them. It doesn't mean that, and you go back to your staff and say, that person has a point here. You know, did this happen, or how do we do this better? So from a competitive standpoint, and I would say New York has to be the most competitive city in the world, it's a good tool. And you do shows like this. You go to food events. You work with, in certain cases, I work with small millers to where I purchase my flour from. So it's a constant growing of this business. And since I am the owner, I think it well, it does fall out on me, and I'm the right one to do that.
What about social media? What's its effect on your business today? Do you all have Facebook pages and?
Yeah. There's, people in New York especially are looking for either the next greatest thing or the classic greatest thing to one-up their friends, because they're thirsty and hungry for this knowledge, and New Yorkers want to eat the best products because they have them available to them. And it's so chaotic to sift through what's good and what's not. It's either word of mouth, but social media is a great way to organize, and it's a great way to get your message out. We're fortunate that we have a lot of traction. We also, online, we're getting a ton of momentum for people paying attention to what we're doing. Our Bialy Crusade, bringing it back.
You realize that Gabil's Knishes, they had a fire.
Yes.
And on eBay later on, before the Knish place opened, they were selling on eBay a box for about $7 a Knish because people wanted this type of product.
Who doesn't love a great Knish?
And part of this, and we'll have Amy's on another show, I mean, part of what helping your promotion is like you coming out with this book on April 1st over here.
Yes.
Talking about recipes. But I'd say, with the exception of you, the two of you, it's more of chefs who have cookbooks than purveyors of manufacturers of food. Would you agree?
Yeah, usually chefs are the ones who are writing cookbooks. But once you have a store, people know about you, it's a natural extension of that to share your recipes and to share more information with your customers. And it's a lot of fun. There's a kind of rapport that you develop with that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, picking up on the sharing theme, word of mouth is huge for our business, and I'm sure it's the same for yours. Once people find a specialty food company, they want to tell their friends, and it sort of catches on. It sort of has a life on its own. And Facebook and Twitter, and that's sort of an extension of that. And that's what we find in our business. We have generations of New Yorkers who keep coming back because they had it as a kid, and then they grew up, and then they bring it to their kids. And we literally have people in their 80s and their 90s walk through our doors telling us that they went to the PS3 school down our block and as a kid, and that's how they found us, and they're still buying us 80, 90 years later. And that's not the exception. We get a lot.
But you're that. But Orwas is 1913, right? Something.
1916. So we're going to celebrate our centennial in 2 years.
Right. So people remember, and people remember that type of thing. Growing up as a New Yorker my entire life, bread, all the bad stuff was something that we loved. We relished. How could you turn down a piece of bread or a cake or a piece of chocolate over there? Prior to the show, I was asking you one of the biggest difficulties that I'd say that all of you have in the business is finding help. How do you find good help, and how do you retain good help?
You do whatever it takes. It's like Keith was saying earlier, you want to train people your way. So with bagels, they're very difficult to make. It's a 24-hour process. We'll bring in people that know what they're doing, or they claim with bagels, and they bring their bad habits, and they're not making the quality, the level of quality that we're looking for. And with Bialys, it's such a specialty thing. Anyone that comes in to bake a Bialy, maybe they've heard of it, but
first of all, they have no idea. I don't
is.
believe they have in Trinidad Bialys. Okay.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, I did have the guy from the Caribbean Bakery. I did his life last year, and he makes cross buns, which you do for Easter. So it's a big item. But how do you find them?
We advertise on Craigslist, and we try to look through, and of course, all these people apply for a job that have no bread baking experience whatsoever. And sifting through, you'll find one or two that have some baking experience or have gone to culinary school. We'll bring them in. We usually do a tryout to watch their hand skills. And if they have good hand skills, even if they don't have a lot of experience.
We know I wouldn't make it. I couldn't make the grade. There's not even a question about it.
If you have a little bit of a knack to shape something, we try to take people on and train them within
And how about you?
Techniques.
Mostly through referrals, through employees in the company who bring people in that they know. That's where we get the most reliable people. It's hard to find people who you don't know and you bring in. It's a challenge.
Well, we do find neophytes. I think, I put a different hat on, and I'm a businessman at that point. And we have to find people that work at the there's a cadence to every business, and especially the baking. There's a pace and a cadence. And they may be talented, but they have to kind of fit into the group. And I use that type of model that some of the bigger corporations use and see how the other people interact with them. What we do is very time sensitive.
Right, and it's time
Okay.
sensitive, and also
And
the hours. That
the hours-
somebody is working is
Yes,
time sensitive.
it's the hours. It is a multitude of things, but I also try and promote from within. So I've read what I can. You know, we're a very small business, but corporate America still has some good ideas in terms of employee retention, and that employee retention makes the environment better to attract new employees.
One of the big problems in this business is to produce it's rent. It's rent, it's
Yeah.
facilities. That's why, you know, you were producing in Chelsea Market, the rents went up there, and now you're in Long Island City. You're in Lower Manhattan and the Lower East Side, but you also have something right now in Queens.
Yeah, the gentrification line, we're right on the gentrified side now, so the rents are
Right.
going skyrocket.
And you're in Hunts Point. you said.
We're still on 78th Street and Hunts Point.
Right, and you're making it, now you're opening up a new place with the open glass, open approach in Industry City.
Yeah, we're in Sunset Park now. That's where we're making our chocolate. We've been there about 10 years. We've just signed a long-term lease at Industry City. They have a great vision to sort of bring in artisans and specialty food purveyors. And one of the things that we're going to be doing there is actually having a glass wall so people can look in and watch the chocolate production, and we're really excited by that.
Now, let me ask you the big question. Amy starts in 1993. You went into this business when?
In 94,
Okay, 94.
pretty much right out of college.
Right, and you went into it recently, okay?
Co-stars recently, but I've been in the business longer than.
Right, you've been in the business for about 20 years. Is there a lot of competition, or is it the cost of entry difficult for people to go into this business?
Well, I think for the small business, it's hard to get into it, so that's why chains succeed, because they can afford to find a piece of real estate that's pretty expensive, open their first store, within 3 or 4 months, open a second store, maybe a third store, and they build a kitchen where they can fulfill the orders for all 3 stores, and they kind of find it to be profitable. But to do a small thing with 1 store, and even we were talking about if you just sold bread, you couldn't survive. I mean, we have sandwiches, we have breakfast items, we have coffee, because people want to have everything. Since Starbucks opened in New York, people want to walk in the door and get everything in one place.
So
and
that
they want
means
it
you
be
have to have,
convenient.
so your bread has to have Wi-Fi also.
Exactly.
It has to be a Wi-Fi bread.
Completely tuned up with Wi-Fi too.
With everything.
The one thing that I think is lacking in our food merchant era was there was an advantage. When you became this food merchant, you were able to sometimes buy the real estate that you were housed in. And I don't think any of us owned the real estate. And that was kind of the anchor that held you into the city and in some ways kept that business alive through lean periods. And, you know, I would love to be able to do that. I don't
You know, we were talking about that. Amy has 3 locations, and she's tried a 4th location, and it's location, location, location. Why do you think the Upper East Side wasn't the type of location, and what's the best location for your type of businesses?
Well, that location was slow on weekends. People were gone, and they also were on a diet. They asked me the calorie count of every product that we had, which was not a good thing to do in a bakery. They were all on the way to the gym, whereas we closed that store and moved to the Village, and no one has asked us the calorie count in the Village, and they always come in on weekends because they live around there all the time, year-round. So you really need to find a neighborhood where people need their local bakery. It's part of the community, and it's really, you know, an essential part of that neighborhood.
You know, I recently noticed on 57th Street, another chocolate person, and you know, Godiva has many locations around the city. You know, and someone told me that their real profit is in the ham dip items on the daily basis, even though there's waste and everything else. Do you think with high rents you would try to open up additional locations?
We are looking for additional locations in the city, but it's very tough, and we need to make sure we find the right location where we can drive, the business. It's very tough for small businesses to pay the rent, cover the rent, and everything in the city. But we'll find it. It's a big city, and I'm sure we will open up more locations when we find the right one.
But you're up on the Upper East Side. But
I am on the Upper East Side. We've been there forever. So it was an established business. The past 7 years, I've included other offerings. We've changed up the breads a little bit. And, you know, I face when I'd worked for someone, you had the low-carb bread. Now you have the gluten-free bread. So there are trends in the industry.
With regard to trends, what about the trend of the new chic locations or different neighborhoods within the city? You know, where, you know, Brooklyn has become hot as, you know, everyone wants to be in Brooklyn. My joke when I used to do real estate shows, specifically in downtown Brooklyn, I said, you can't have enough Junior's cheesecake to satisfy 1,900 apartments. Do you see Brooklyn, the Barclays Center? Do you see potentially the Hudson Yards? Do you see, you know, parts of Queens, you know, the Regal Park, the Kew Gardens, as opportunities for all of you to expand to those other neighborhoods as opposed to being in Manhattan?
I think Brooklyn has a lot of potential, and there are a lot of people that want good food, and it's a neighborhood, again, where people are living weekends, weekdays, around the, you know, year round, and I think that's a really critical part of it.
Everybody eats every day, at least 2 meals, hopefully 4.
The store I own predates really the supermarket. So when people went shopping, they went to their local baker, their local butcher, fish, what have you. And then you had the supermarket and you have these gourmet markets. I think the demographic in Brooklyn would appreciate having some standalone bakeries. I think their eating habits now have gone back with the whole food kind of resurgence, really kind of took hold after the financial market crash of 2008. So I think they're vibrant areas. And I guess the question with any retail store is population density.
Yeah.
We're not selling very expensive items. So whereas a handbag store, boutique handbag store in Soho can sell 1 handbag a week and they make their rent, I have to sell, and I know Amy and Kozars and you have to sell an awful lot of product to pay that rent.
I did a show recently, and we were talking about a specific location. We were talking about Brookfield Place, which was, they didn't call it, they used to call it the World Financial Center.
Right.
It's now called Brookfield Space. The largest number of people coming to New York today visit Lower Manhattan. Lower Manhattan is the Mecca because of the Trade Center, because of the Memorial and other situation. And people, you know, they research. When they're looking, you know, when they come to restaurants, you know, because when I do restaurant shows, I said, what about the visitors? They say, my customers at night are out-of-towners. They are visitors. Visitors to New York want a good pretzel. They want a good bread. They want a good baguette. They want something like that. I haven't heard any of you, I mean, but you're on the Lower East Side, to be in the lower financial district, the FIDI. Do you see that as a potential area?
Well, it's not such a weekend place, although tourists are there on weekends, but I don't find it as much of a neighborhood. It would be a great place for breakfast and lunch. But when you're around places where there are a lot of chains, I think you don't stand out as much as a neighborhood that really cares about like a local handmade product, a craft product, and what we would sell. If we were all in under one roof together, we would have a great thing, because there would be all these people coming because of all the artisan
wait a second.
products.
Wasn't that really what you had at Chelsea Market?
Absolutely. Today there are still those producers of food, but there are also a lot of places to buy your breakfast and your lunch, so it's more of a place to get a meal as well as where you can buy the food at the source.
But Chelsea Market is a great example because the meatpacking district, nobody, I mean, when
it first started,
when
there wasn't
111
much
8th
going on.
Avenue was acquired by Taconic, and they brought the New York State Pension Authority down to look at it because they said, we're buying this building, the neighborhood wasn't there. I mean, it's a different world and a different market over here. So who are your customers? Are they New Yorkers or are they out-of-towners? Okay, is there a lot of, do people buy your products on the internet? And
Yeah, most of our customers are New Yorkers. And a lot of ex-New Yorkers and families who used to live in New York and now live across the country and come back to us. We sell on the internet as well as our 2 stores.
We do some internet business. Problem is, has to be an overnight delivery. The delivery costs probably 3 times the price of the product.
Right.
Certain people are willing to do that. They have the disposable
it's
income.
my wedding,
great.
it's my bris, I
Right.
need
Right.
this.
That's
Exactly.
By the way, we've done that before. We've shipped to Maryland and California a lot of bread.
do
the
the
South
same
Beach.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's for the special events. People want a little piece of New York, and there's no better way to do it than this stuff. We get a lot of tourist business. We're very fortunate about that. And people come to the Lower East Side because they want to immerse themselves in the history. And you've got places like Russ and Daughters and Katz's Deli and the Pickle Guys, and Yona Schimmel's Knishes, and they want to come down and get a little piece of old New York. And we're it, so we're fortunate. But we have a huge neighborhood support network. I mean, that's really who supports us. And then people from all over Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, they come on the weekends.
So what's your thoughts about the future of food production in New York? Is it growing?
There's still a growing business in New York, but it's very costly. So I think that you have to get to a certain size in order to sustain your business, or you won't be able to survive with the cost of running your business and the cost of staffing.
Right, because the costs constantly go up. The real estate taxes, your landlord's passing through that to you. The fuel is over there. The maintenance is going up. And then, needless to say, insurance. And as we brought up prior to the show, the cost of the health department, the reviews and everything else over there.
What I see happening is you have food incubators in the city that kind of get these food manufacturers off the ground, and they're economical and will work. I don't know what it will be to scale up. Recently I moved and I built a more modern, bigger facility in Hunts Point, which is now the major food section, but it was very costly. Okay, and you bite your nails at night and make sure you can pay your rent again.
So what it really comes out to is people, as I said at the beginning of the show, people have to manja. People have to eat, they have to enjoy, they have to forget about the carbs or the gluten or the others, and we don't want anyone.
Enjoy.
Okay, we don't want the Upper East Side to ask me if it's 12 calories or not.
We don't care.
And I would like to say I'm so happy that I have this beautiful spread over here, and some of it will be tasted, no question, after the show. I'd like to thank Amy, Mark, Keith, and Anthony, and I'll see you next week.